Okay, time for another movie review. This is the 2019 movie Ford versus Ferrari, directed by James Mangold, written for the screen by Jez Butterworth, John Henry Butterworth, and Jason Keller. In the cast, in the lead role, Matt Damon plays Carroll Shelby. Christian Bale is Miles. John Bernthal plays Lee Iacocca. Catriona Balfe plays Molly Miles, Ken's wife. Josh Lucas, Leo Beebe, and Tracy Letts plays Henry Ford II, and Remo Giron plays Enzo Ferrari. We'll just run quickly through the awards for this movie. The Academy Awards, it won for Best Film Editing and Best Sound Editing, and was nominated for Best Picture, Best Sound Mixing. At the Globes, Bale got a nomination for Best Actor, and at the BAFTAs, it won for Best Editing and was nominated for cinematography and sound. So Shelby, played by Damon, is a NASCAR driver. He's forced to retire early, however, due to a heart condition. And he teams up with Ken Miles, played by Bale, who's a British driver who tends to test drive the machinery rather than actually race it. But he's an absolute fanatic about the mechanics of the engine, maximising performance, and anything under the hood, he's an expert. Anyway, he becomes the lead driver in this movie, which focuses on Ford Motor Company's attempt to get a car to challenge the domination of Ferrari at the famous Le Mans 24-hour race that takes place annually in France. Other main protagonists include Josh Lucas as Leo Beebe. He's an executive working director for Henry Ford, the chairman of Ford Motor Company, and Ford is played by Tracy Letts. The performance by Mills as Ken's wife is particularly strong and played affectionately, as he said, by Catriona Balfe. And Ken's son also has a supporting role in this movie. Now, motor racing has cropped up in Hollywood movies before. I'm sure we can all remember the very impressive Grand Prix back in I think it was the early 70s. And then recently we had a movie about Ayrton Senna, which was also very gripping. Well, that was more on a sort of documentary side of footing. But this movie focuses on that rivalry between Ferrari and Ford. Ford, up until that time, hadn't really been involved at all in motor racing. But the history behind this movie, which is a factual account, sees how Ford builds a winning combination of car and driver to compete with Ferrari, who had dominated this race for a number of years. And the issue about this is debated to a considerable extent in the Ford Motor Company's rooms, and they eventually decide to employ Shelby to reach the target of success, but based on his reputation as being one of the greatest drivers of all time. And it has to be said that Damon and Bale produce 5-star performances here, and some scenes actually encapsulate the strength of an engaging script. Ken Miles' passion is illustrated in spades, and we note this with an early scene where we witness a sports car smashing by Bale in temper as he smashes the boot with a hammer, because he's frustrated with the lack of performance from this vehicle. Shelby's meetings with Ford management also is a high point as he tries to lay out how difficult it is to be competitive in this particular new environment. Early on, we receive a dramatic description by Shelby given to Miles about how the 24-hour endurance race demands qualities way beyond a normal race. Of course, Shelby, a previous winner, now had moved into design following the complaint with regard to his health. And the details that he goes into are certainly riveting. And Miles, who's got a maverick sense in him, really takes the bull by the horns, and it becomes very committed to getting the car at the performance level necessary to do this task and win this race. Now, of course, anybody that knows anything about the Le Mans race will know that they actually have a team of drivers, 3 in all, to complete the non-stop race. So this gives you some idea of what sort of a car you need to handle the severe conditions, because they are severe, particularly if weather turns against them. And the difference between winning Le Mans and a routine NASCAR event where you just go around an oval track is significant, to say the least. We get some interesting discussions and mini arguments, difference of opinion really between Miles and Shelby. The relationship between the two men, though slowly develops and a close bond evolves, and it reaches the point where when the executives in the motor company, Ford Motor Company, insist that Miles can't be the #1 driver, Shelby threatens to abort the project if he can't have his man. And it gives some sort of inkling as to the bond that develops between these two men as the film evolves. Miles is very much his own person, but his ability to get the maximum out of the car is illustrated in many scenes before we actually get to the actual race. So with Shelby eventually overcoming the issues with the board and getting his man, we then move on to the actual footage of the race, which is absolutely fantastic. You get very much a bird's eye view from the cinematographer and Mangold, the director, and it's a 24-hour endurance race, and treacherous weather takes over in the middle of the night, and there's spectacular spills, accidents, cars caught on fire when overturning. You certainly get a full picture of the excitement of the event and to some extent the tragedy. However, I have to say that I would suggest that you watch it on a big screen. My small laptop really didn't do it justice. But as the roast evolves, the determination and the ability of Bale's character Miles is shown in spades, and he really does get a huge buzz out of the task at hand, and this is brings about some of the best scenes really of this type of spectacle that I have witnessed. And of course, a predictable ending, but nevertheless, it actually rescues the film. It's not actually a classic by any stretch of the imagination, but the final third with the excitement of the race is breathtaking. Of course, it took place in 1966, and it actually reminded me vividly of the memory of this particular event. Because although I can't specifically remember 1966, it was at about that age and possibly a bit younger when I used to sit down with my father and we watched the beginning of the race at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. And what was very special about this race was that the race was started with the drivers standing at the opposite side of the road to their vehicles, and they had to race across to their vehicles, start them, and then get away. And it created that extra bit of excitement. So basically, I suggest you go and give it a watch. Bale, of course, is an exceptional actor, as is Damon, and they basically bring this movie up a few notches, really, with a script that sort of lacks a little. But that's my review of Ford versus Ferrari.